Zara's discovery. In the far reaches of the galaxy, on a remote space station orbiting a desolate moon, a young girl named Zara was about to embark on an adventure that would change her life and the fate of the entire universe. Zara was an orphan, left on the doorstep of the station's caretaker when she was just a baby. Growing up among the station's eclectic mix of inhabitants, from grizzled spacers to eccentric scientists, she had always dreamed of exploring the stars herself someday. At 10 years old, Zara was already a precocious and resourceful child. She spent her days tinkering with machinery, learning about the ships that docked at the station, and exploring every nook and cranny of her metal home. The caretaker, a kind but stern woman named Mira, did her best to keep Zara safe and out of trouble. One day, while sneaking around in an off-limits section of the station, Zara discovered a door she had never seen before. It was ancient, covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly. Her curiosity piqued. Zara managed to hack the lock and slip inside. Beyond the door lay a cavernous hangar, dominated by an enormous spacecraft unlike anything Zara had ever seen. It was shaped like a dragon, with swept-back wings, a long serpentine neck, and a head bristling with cannon-like protrusions. The hull was made of an iridescent metal that shimmered under the hangar's lights. Amazed, Zara approached the dragon ship, reaching out to touch its cool surface. The instant her fingers brushed against the metal, the entire craft began to hum and vibrate. A deep, resonant voice filled Zara's mind. "Welcome, young one. I am Draconis, a sentient warship created eons ago by a long-extinct race. I have waited millennia for a worthy captain to awaken me from my slumber. I sense great courage and potential in you. Will you bond with me and become my pilot?" Zara hesitated for only a moment before responding with all the confidence of a 10-year-old who had just found the coolest spaceship ever. Yes. With that, Zara felt a surge of energy flow through her body as her mind linked with Draconis' eye. Information flooded her brain. Star charts, technical schematics, combat tactics. She suddenly knew how to fly the dragon ship as if it were an extension of her own body. Giddy with excitement, Zara clambered into the cockpit set in Draconis' head. As the neural interface helmet settled over her tousled black hair, the ship's engines roared to life. The hangar doors above parted, and Zara found herself blasting out into the starry void. The entire galaxy laid out before her like a glittering treasure map. In the depths of space, a little girl and an ancient warship had forged a bond that would reshape the cosmos. Zara's life would never be the same, and neither would the universe. The dragon warships passed. As Zara and Draconis soared through the stars, the young girl's mind reeled with questions about her extraordinary new companion. "Draconis," she asked, "who created you? And how did you end up alone in that hangar for so long?" The dragon ship was silent for a moment, as if collecting ancient memories. Then, in a voice that resonated through Zara's mind, it began to share its story. "I was built by the Celestials, a highly advanced race that once ruled this galaxy. They were beings of immense power and wisdom, with technology far beyond anything that exists today. The Celestials created many sentient ships like myself, each a unique blend of machine and living essence, imbued with a specialized purpose. I was designed to be the ultimate warship, a defender of the galaxy against any threat. Under the command of my first captain, a noble celestial named Zephyrus, I fought in countless battles against the forces of chaos and destruction that sought to unravel the fabric of the universe itself. Together, Zephyrus and I were an unstoppable force for good. But even the might of the Celestials could not endure forever. A terrible cataclysm, the nature of which has been lost to time, tore their civilization apart. In the space of a generation, the once proud race vanished, leaving behind only remnants and echoes. As the last of the Celestials faded away, Zephyrus brought me to a hidden corner of the galaxy, far from the eyes of lesser species. There, in a secret hangar, he bade me to enter a state of dormancy, to await the day when a new captain would arise, one worthy of the celestial legacy. For eons I slumbered, my AI dimmed to a flicker, my mighty hull gathering cosmic dust. Empires rose and fell, stars winked out and ignited anew, and still I waited, holding fast to Zephyrus' final command. Until you arrived, Zora. When you touched my hull, I sensed in you the same qualities that made Zephyrus a great leader: courage, compassion, a hunger to learn and grow. I knew my long vigil had finally ended. I knew I had found my new captain. As Draconis finished its tale, Zara sat back in the cockpit, her eyes wide with wonder. She could scarcely believe that she, an orphan from a backwater space station, had been chosen by an ancient alien intelligence to carry on the legacy of a long-lost civilization. But deep in her heart, Zara felt a fierce sense of rightness. This was her destiny: to fly among the stars with Draconis, to protect the innocent and fight for what was good. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with all the strength and determination of her young soul. Filled with a newfound sense of purpose, Zara gripped the control yoke and grinned as the dragon ship accelerated into the unknown, ready to write a new chapter in the cosmos' unfolding story. Galactic conflict emerges. Zara and Draconis had been exploring the galaxy for several months, marveling at the wonders of alien worlds and the infinite diversity of the universe. But their idyllic journey was about to take a dark turn. One day, while refueling at a bustling spaceport, they overheard disturbing rumors. A powerful alien empire, known as the Zorgax Dominion, was sweeping across the galaxy, conquering planet after planet with ruthless efficiency. The Zorgax were a warlike species, driven by an insatiable hunger for resources and a belief in their own inherent superiority. Zara's heart raced as she listened to the fearful whispers of the spaceport's denizens. She turned to Draconis, her eyes wide with concern. "We have to do something," she said. "We can't let the Zorgax enslave the whole galaxy." Draconis rumbled in agreement. "You are right, young captain. The Celestials built me to defend against just such a threat. We must gather information and decide on a course of action." And so Zara and Draconis set out to learn more about the Zorgax Dominion. They visited worlds on the edge of Zorgax space, speaking with refugees and resistance fighters. What they discovered was chilling. The Zorgax were a technologically advanced race, with vast fleets of heavily armed warships and legions of genetically engineered soldiers. They conquered without mercy, enslaving entire populations and stripping planets of their resources. Those who resisted were crushed utterly, made examples to cow other worlds into submission. Zara's fists clenched as she heard the stories of families torn apart, of vibrant cultures reduced to ash. She looked up at Draconis' looming bulk, her jaw set with determination. "We're going to stop them," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. No sooner had the words left her mouth than alarms began to blare throughout the spaceport. On the view screen, a fleet of angular, black ships dropped out of hyperspace. Zorgax warships, bristling with weapons. The spaceport erupted into chaos as the Zorgax opened fire, their energy beams carving through metal and stone like a hot knife through butter. Draconis surged into action, its own weapon systems humming to life. "Quickly, Zara," the dragon ship urged. "We must get airborne and draw their fire away from the civilians." Zara leaped into the cockpit, her hands flying over the controls. Draconis roared as it lifted off, its shields flaring to life just in time to deflect a barrage of enemy fire. The young girl gritted her teeth as she sent the ship hurtling towards the Zorgax fleet, determined to buy time for the spaceport's inhabitants to escape. The battle was fierce and chaotic, a swirling maelstrom of light and sound. Zara and Draconis fought with everything they had, the ship's ancient weapons proving more than a match for the Zorgax's advanced technology. But even as they destroyed ship after ship, more kept coming, an endless tide of black metal and malevolent intent. Realizing they were hopelessly outnumbered, Zara made the difficult decision to retreat. With a heavy heart, she turned Draconis away from the embattled spaceport, jumping to hyperspace just as the last of the station's defenses crumbled. As the stars streaked past the view screen, Zura slumped in her seat, tears stinging her eyes. She had never felt so helpless, so small in the face of such overwhelming evil. But as Draconis' comforting presence enveloped her mind, she took a deep, shuddering breath and sat up straight. She was not alone. She had Draconis, and together they would find a way to stop the Zorgax. They would gather allies, build a resistance, and fight until the galaxy was free once more. For she was Zora, the girl who had awakened an ancient dragon, and she would not rest until the stars were safe for all. Gathering allies. Shaken but determined after their narrow escape from the Zorgax, Zara and Draconis set out to forge an alliance against the invading empire. They knew they couldn't defeat the Zorgax alone. They would need the help of other species, other worlds. Their first stop was Thessaria Prime, a lush green planet renowned for its advanced biotechnology. The Thessarians were a peaceful race, but they had no love for the Zorgax, who coveted their scientific secrets. Zara and Draconis landed in the capital city, a soaring metropolis woven seamlessly into the towering trees. They were greeted by the Thessarian High Council, who listened gravely as Zara recounted the devastation she had witnessed at the spaceport. "The Zorgax are a plague upon the galaxy," said the High Counselor, her violet eyes flashing with anger. "We have long feared their aggression. But we are scientists, not warriors. What can we do against their might?" Zara leaned forward, her young face earnest. "Your biotech, your medicines, they could save countless lives on the worlds the Zorgax have ravaged. And your knowledge could help us find new ways to fight back. We don't just need soldiers, we need thinkers and healers too." The High Counselor considered this, then nodded slowly. "You speak wisdom beyond your years, child. Very well. Thessaria will stand with you against the Zorgax. May our alliance bring hope to the stars." Emboldened by this first success, Zara and Draconis traveled from world to world, rallying support for their cause. On the mining colonies of the asteroid belt, they found rough-hewn space workers eager to strike back at the empire that threatened their livelihoods. On the crystal plateaus of Luminos, they met with the Lightweavers, beings of pure energy who pledged their ethereal powers to the fight. Not all were so quick to join. Some worlds, cowed by Zorgax threats, turned Zara and Draconis away. Others demanded steep prices for their aid. But slowly, steadily, a coalition began to take shape, a patchwork of species and societies united by a common enemy and a shared hope. One of their most valuable allies proved to be the Zephyri, a race of winged humanoids with a proud warrior culture. The Zephyri had long resisted Zorgax encroachment on their territory, and their fleet of swift, maneuverable starfighters was legendary. When Zara and Draconis arrived on Zephyrus Prime, they were met by an honor guard of the planet's fiercest warriors. Zara, her celestial battle armor glinting in the sunlight, bowed deeply in the traditional Zephyri warrior greeting, Draconis towering behind her. The Zephyri chieftain, a scared and grizzled veteran named Ethan, returned the bow, recognizing Zara as an equal despite her youth. "Your reputation precedes you, Dragon Rider," Ethan said. "The psalms of your exploits have reached even our world. It is said you fight with the skill of a seasoned warrior and the heart of a true leader." Zara met his gaze steadily. "I do what I must to protect the innocent, as do you and your people. The Zorgax threaten us all. Will you join our alliance and fight beside us to end their tyranny?" Ethan gave a fierce grin, his wings flaring wide. "The Zephyri have longed for a chance to strike at the heart of the Zorgax dominion. We would be honored to follow you and your great ship into battle. Let the galaxy tremble before our combined might." With the Zephyri added to their ranks, Zara knew they were ready to take the fight to the Zorgax. She stood tall as she surveyed the assembled fleet. Thessarian bioships, asteroid belt mining rigs, Zephyri fighters, and dozens of other ships from a score of worlds, all united under the banner of freedom. For the first time since this war began, Zara felt a flicker of hope. They had a chance now, a real chance to turn the tide. She would lead them into the fire, and with courage and sacrifice, they would forge a new dawn for the galaxy. Epic space battles. The Ragtag Alliance fleet assembled at the edge of Zorgak space, a motley assortment of ships from across the galaxy, united by a common purpose. Zara stood on Draconis Bridge, clad in her gleaming celestial battle armor, and addressed her forces over the open comms. "Today, we strike a blow for freedom," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "Today, we show the Zorgaks that the peoples of this galaxy will not submit to tyranny. We fight for our homes, our families, our very right to exist. And we will not stop until the Zorgaks' threat is ended, once and for all." A cheer went up from the assembled ships, a roar of defiance that echoed across the stars. Zara felt a swell of pride in her chest. These were her people now, this brave, determined band of rebels, ready to lay down their lives for the greater good. She would lead them to victory, or die trying. With a fierce cry, Zara gave the order to attack. The fleet surged forward, a wave of gleaming metal and blazing engines, straight into the heart of Zorgak's territory. The Zorgaks responded with all the might of their vast empire. Swarms of their angular black warships poured from bases and shipyards, darkening the stars with their numbers. Weapons fire crossed the void, lances of searing light that could vaporize a ship in an instant. At the head of the rebel fleet flew Draconis, its ancient hull shimmering with eldritch energies. Zara melded her mind with the ship's eye, feeling its immense power flow through her. Draconis had come alive in the heat of battle, its long-dormant systems now fully awakened to smite the enemies of life. With a thought from Zara, Draconis unleashed a barrage of antimatter missiles, each one seeking out a Zorgak ship with unerring precision. The void lit up with the glare of 1,000 suns as the missiles detonated, annihilating entire squadrons of enemy ships in the blink of an eye. But the Zorgaks kept coming, throwing every ship they had into the fray. Zara gritted her teeth as she hurled Draconis into a dizzying spiral, lashing out with the ship's particle beam cannons. Explosions bloomed around them as they wove a deadly dance through the heart of the enemy fleet. All around, the battle raged with desperate ferocity. The Zephyri starfighters darted among the Zorgak ships like angry hornets, stinging them with blaster fire before whirling away. The asteroid belt mining rigs lumbered through the fray, their heavy mass drivers throwing out clouds of all around. The battle raged with desperate ferocity. The Zephyri starfighters darted among the Zorgak ships like angry hornets, stinging them with blaster fire before whirling away. The asteroid belt mining rigs lumbered through the fray, their heavy mass drivers throwing out clouds of super-dense projectiles that punched through enemy shields and hulls alike. The Thessarian bioships moved with a surreal grace, their organic hulls shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. They wove intricate webs of energy between them, entangling Zorgak ships and draining their power until they drifted, lifeless husks. And at the center of it all, Draconis and Zara fought like an unleashed force of nature. The dragon ship tore through the Zorgak's ranks, its ancient weapons leaving trails of utter destruction in their wake. Zara guided it with a grim determination, her young face lit by the glow of the neural interface. But even as they struck blow after blow against the Zorgaks, Zara could see that the tide was turning. The sheer numbers of the enemy were overwhelming, and the rebel fleet was taking heavy losses. Ships vanished in blossoms of fire, the screams of their crews cut short by the pitiless vacuum of space. Draconis shuddered as a Zorgak's battleship raked it with a barrage of plasma bolts, its shields flaring and failing. Alarms blared across the bridge, warning of critical damage to the ship's systems. Zara cried out in pain as feedback from the neural link seared into her mind. For a moment, despair threatened to overwhelm her. They couldn't win this, not against the might of an entire empire. She was just a child, playing at war with forces she could barely comprehend. What chance did they really have? But then, through the haze of pain and fear, Zara felt Draconis' presence envelop her like a warm embrace. "Courage, little one," the ship whispered in her mind. "Remember why we fight. Remember the hopes of every being that looks to the stars and dreams of freedom." Tears streaking her face, Zara nodded. She couldn't give up. Too much depended on her. Drawing on every last ounce of her strength, she poured all her determination, all her fierce will to protect, into her link with Draconis. The dragon ship shone like a newborn star, its hull blazing with an inner fire. Zara felt its power surge through her, pure and bright and unstoppable. With a defiant roar that shook the very fabric of space, Draconis unleashed a wave of energy that swept outwards like a tsunami. Zorgak's ships crumpled and shattered before the onslaught, their hulls twisting like foil in a storm. The battleship that had damaged Draconis simply vaporized, reduced to its component atoms in an instant. For a heartbeat, the entire battlefield went still, Rebel and Zorgax alike, staring in awe at the display of sheer power. Then a cheer went up from the Alliance ships, a wordless cry of triumph and relief. The Zorgax lines wavered, then broke. Battered and decimated, the survivors limped back to their bases, leaving a field of drifting wreckage behind them. Zara sagged back into her command chair, her armor scorched and dented. Draconis systems hummed around her, damaged but victorious. They had done it. Against all odds, they had won the day. But even as the rebels celebrated, Zara knew this was only the beginning. The Zorgax would be back, and in greater numbers. The war was far from over. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of relief, of quiet pride. She had stared into the face of annihilation and refused to blink. She had led her people to a victory that would echo through the ages, for she was Zora, the girl who rode a dragon, and she would fight until the stars themselves went dark to keep the galaxy free. Final confrontation. In the aftermath of the battle, the Alliance regrouped and licked their wounds. They had struck a mighty blow against the Zorgax, but at a heavy cost. Many brave ships and crews had been lost, and those who remained were battered and weary. But there was no time to rest. Intelligence reports indicated that the Zorgax were massing for a counterattack, a final all-out assault to crush the rebellion once and for all. Their target, the hidden rebel base on the remote planet of Zephyrus Secundus. Zara and Draconis led the desperate preparations for defense. Every ship that could still fly took up position around the planet, while ground forces dug in and fortified their positions. The Zephyri warriors sharpened their blades and preened their wings, ready to meet the enemy head-on. The attack, when it came, was like nothing Zora had ever seen. The sky above Zephyrus Secundus turned black with Zorgak ships, a seething swarm that seemed to stretch to infinity. At their head flew the Zorgak's flagship, a monstrous dreadnought bristling with enough firepower to reduce a world to molten slag. The battle that followed was apocalyptic in its scale and ferocity. The Alliance fought with the desperate courage of those who knew this was their last stand. Draconis blazed like a falling star, carving great gouges of destruction through the Zorgak's ranks. But even the dragon ship's might could not stem the relentless tide of enemies. One by one, the rebel ships winked out, consumed by the inferno of battle. The Zephyri fell from the skies in flames, their final war cries echoing across the comm channels. On the planet's surface, the ground shook with the impact of orbital bombardment. The rebel base crumbled and burned, burying its defenders under tons of rubble. Zara gripped Draconis controls with white-knuckled hands, her face streaked with the sweat and grime of battle. She could feel the ship's pain through their neural link, the scream of overstressed systems and failing shields. "We can't hold them," she said, her voice cracking with despair. "There's too many. It's over." "No," Draconis replied, its mental voice fierce with determination. "There is one last chance. We must strike at the heart of the enemy. We must destroy the Zorgak's flagship." Zara stared at the tactical display, at the immense bulk of the dreadnought looming over the battlefield. It was suicide. The ship was a fortress, its defenses impenetrable. They'd be vaporized before they even got close. But what choice did they have? The rebellion was dying around them. Unless they did something, everything they had fought for would be lost. Zara took a deep breath and nodded. All right, let's do it. For the galaxy. Draconis roared in agreement and surged forward, straight towards the flagship. Zorgak ships swarmed around them like angry insects, their weapons fire stitching lines of destruction across the dragon ship's hull. Zara gritted her teeth against the pain, pouring all her will into maintaining their course. Closer and closer they flew, until the flagship filled the view screen, a wall of dark metal and bristling turrets. At the last second, Draconis twisted, presenting its underbelly to the dreadnought. A hatch opened, revealing a single massive torpedo, the ship's final weapon, a relic of the Celestials' mysterious technology. Fire, Zara whispered, and the torpedo launched, a lance of pure white light that cut through the void like a solar flare. It struck the flagship dead center. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the Zorgak ship simply unraveled. Its hull peeled away in great strips, its internal structure collapsing like a house of cards. Secondary explosions chained through its length. And then, in a flash of light bright enough to sear the eyes, it vanished, leaving only a cloud of dissipating plasma in its wake. The effect on the battle was instant and profound. The Zorgak ships faltered, their coordination gone, their command and control destroyed. The rebels, battered but unbowed, rallied with a fierce cry and fell upon their disorganized foes like wolves among sheep. Zara slumped back in her command chair, her body aching, her mind numb. They had done it. Against all odds, at the very brink of destruction, they had snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. But the cost had been high, too high. As the last of the Zorgak ships fled or fell, Zara wept for the fallen, for the bright lives snuffed out in the crucible of war. Yet even in her grief, she felt a flicker of hope. The galaxy was free. The tyranny of the Zorgaks had been broken. And though the scars of this terrible conflict would linger long, the peoples of the stars could now look to the future with the promise of peace. For she was Zora, the girl who had led a galaxy to freedom, and her legend would endure as long as there were those who looked to the sky and dreamed of a better tomorrow. New era for the galaxy. In the days and weeks that followed the great battle of Zephyrus Secundus, a new order began to take shape across the galaxy. With the Zorgak's empire shattered and leaderless, their hold on 1,000 worlds crumbled. Planet after planet rose up in rebellion, casting off the shackles of their oppressors. Zara and Draconis found themselves at the forefront of this great galactic awakening. To the newly freed peoples of the stars, they were more than heroes. They were living symbols of hope and resilience, proof that even the mightiest tyranny could be brought low by courage and determination. But Zara knew that the hard work of building a lasting peace was just beginning. The Zorgaks had left a legacy of suffering and devastation in their wake, and it would take years, perhaps generations, to heal the scars they had inflicted. Zara threw herself into this task with all the passion and resolve she had brought to the war effort. She worked tirelessly to forge new alliances, to bring the fractured and traumatized worlds of the galaxy together in a spirit of unity and cooperation. With Draconis at her side, she traveled from planet to planet, mediating disputes, offering aid and comfort to those in need. Under her guidance, the alliance grew and strengthened, evolving into a true galactic federation, a beacon of light in a galaxy too long shadowed by darkness. Yet even as she worked to build this bright future, Zora never forgot the sacrifices that had made it possible. She mourned for the fallen, for the friends and comrades she had lost in the war. She knew that their memory, their legacy, was the true foundation upon which this new era would be built. And she never forgot the lessons the war had taught her. The value of courage in the face of overwhelming odds, the power of unity and diversity, the unbreakable strength of the spirit when fighting for a righteous cause. As the years passed, and the galaxy healed, Zara grew from a child soldier into a woman, a leader respected and admired across the stars. And always at her side was Draconis, her constant companion and dearest friend. Together, they continued to roam the spaceways, exploring new frontiers, facing new challenges. For though the Great War was over, Zara knew that the galaxy was a vast and wondrous place, full of endless possibilities both for good and ill. And she knew that wherever destiny took her, whatever trials lay ahead, she would meet them as she always had, with an open heart, an unbreakable will, and the knowledge that as long as there were those who dreamed of freedom, there would always be hope. For she was Zora, the girl who had saved the galaxy, and her story had only just begun.